My name is Alex Vance. For 15 years, I worked tirelessly as a construction contractor, building a life, a home, and a reputation from the ground up. My ex-wife, Charlotte, came from a different world, a world of old money, influence, and unearned respect. Her father was Judge Arthur Sinclair, a powerful, feared figure who presided over the family court in our district. He was a man who believed the law existed only to serve his family. When Charlotte decided she was done with the hard work of being married to a contractor, she filed for divorce. I wasn't just facing my ex-wife. I was facing the entire legal establishment of the county. The divorce was a slaughter. Judge Sinclair didn't preside over the case, but his influence was everywhere. The lawyers trembled, the mediator sighed, and every ruling went against me. My hard-earned construction business was valued low for asset division, but my projected future earnings were valued high for spousal support. The final verdict was a complete legal destruction. Charlotte took the house, my down payment, my labor. I was ordered to pay a crippling spousal support based on my potential earnings. And worst of all, I lost primary custody of my 10-year-old son, Leo. The blow of losing Leo was unbearable. The court claimed my schedule as a contractor was unstable, while Charlotte's life of leisure was deemed more nurturing. Judge Sinclair, appearing as an expert witness, delivered the final crushing blow. He looked me straight in the eye in court and said, "Mr. Vance, hard work does not equate to suitable parenthood. You simply aren't equipped for this." I left the courthouse with nothing but a used pickup truck, a mountain of debt, and supervised visitation rights to my own son. My life, built brick by brick, had been deliberately demolished by a man who believed his name was above the law. I moved into a depressing, cramped apartment. The humiliation was relentless. I had to continue working for the business I no longer owned, paying my ex-wife's lifestyle, just so I could afford the 2 hours a week I was allowed to spend with Leo. My one remaining comfort was the old garage I used for storage, the last piece of property my mother, Eleanor, had left me before she passed away 5 years ago. My mom was a humble woman, a local history teacher, known for her quiet pride and love of antiques. She always told me, "Alex, never forget where you come from and never sell the little things." One rainy Saturday, desperate for distraction, I started clearing out the garage. Everything was dusty and ordinary. Old tools, Christmas decorations, stacks of my mother's local history books, but tucked away in the very back. Beneath an old tarp was a heavy, unmarked steel lockbox. I remembered seeing it decades ago, but my mother always kept it tucked away. I didn't have the key. I spent an hour with a grinder and a small chisel, fueled by my frustration with the world. The lock popped. I opened the heavy lid. Inside, it wasn't cash or jewelry. It was a collection of faded, handwritten letters tied with a ribbon and a single, thick, leather-bound ledger. The ledger was dated 1985. The letters were all addressed to my mother, Eleanor Vance. The letters were from a major New York City law firm. They weren't about history. They were about real estate and property deeds. I started reading the letters first. They were formal, legal, and confusing. They spoke of a complex land trust established in the late 1980s. The land was not in Ohio. It was in Florida, on the Gulf Coast. I flipped to the ledger. My mother, the history teacher, had kept immaculate records of transactions, zoning changes, and tax payments for a single, long-held commercial property. I traced the property address on my computer. It was a beachfront property that had been bought for a pittance in 1985 before the area exploded into a luxury resort destination. The land was now worth tens of millions. But the most important discovery was on the last page of the ledger, a carbon copy of the original trust document. My mother, Eleanor Vance, owned the trust, and I was the sole heir. That was the good news. The shocking news was in the fine print of the original land deed, which was attached to the ledger. The trust was registered under 3 names in 1985, Eleanor Vance, my mom. William Sterling, a former senator, Arthur Sinclair, Arthur Sinclair. It was the same name. My ex-father-in-law, the judge, was a silent partner in this incredibly valuable decades-old land trust with my mother, and there was a note attached to the deed, written in my mother's elegant hand. Alex, Arthur wanted this kept completely secret. He used an alias lawyer and his wife's maiden name on the original contract to avoid public disclosure. If this ever becomes necessary, the ownership documents are here. This is his hidden shame. My mother, the quiet history teacher, had been sitting on a financial atomic bomb involving the most powerful family in the county. Judge Arthur Sinclair had violated every judicial ethics rule by entering into a secret, non-disclosed commercial partnership. The land was now worth $35 million. I didn't call the press. I didn't contact the ethics committee. I called my new, highly aggressive lawyer, Ms. Evelyn Reed. I laid the ledger and the documents on her mahogany table. Evelyn Reed. Mr. Vance, this is not just an asset. This is a judge's career. This is a public scandal that could lead to disbarment and criminal charges for tax evasion and non-disclosure. Alex, I don't want his career. I want my son and my life back. I want justice for the years of hard work he wiped out. My lawyer filed an emergency motion to reopen the divorce settlement, citing newly discovered substantial undisclosed assets belonging to the defendant, Charlotte, who was a joint heir to Sinclair's estate. The motion also included an Exhibit A, the redacted financial details of the Florida Land Trust, listing only the initials of the three partners. Judge Sinclair and Charlotte's legal team went into immediate damage control. They knew exactly what those initials meant. We held a private emergency mediation session. Judge Sinclair, cold and arrogant in the courtroom, was now sweating, his face pale and drawn. He didn't want this secret coming out. A $35 million hidden asset linked to a sitting family court judge would destroy his life and the family's reputation. Judge Sinclair, Mr. Vance, let's be reasonable. We can settle this quietly. Alex, quietly? You took my son, Judge. You called me unequipped. You destroyed 15 years of my life to protect your daughter's lazy lifestyle. You didn't just rule against me. You tried to erase me. The negotiation was short and brutal. My demands were simple. Full primary physical custody of Leo, effective immediately. Immediate termination of all spousal support. Charlotte signs over all rights and ownership to the construction business back to me. Horn. $1 million in restitution for lost earnings and legal fees. Judge Sinclair agreed to every single term without a counteroffer. He couldn't risk the full disclosure of the land trust. The shame of his hidden financial dealings was too great. I didn't take the $35 million from the trust. I was the heir to my mother's one-third share, but I sold my stake back to the trust's holding company at a fair but swift valuation. The judge lost his leverage, his reputation, and his victory in the divorce. Within 48 hours, I was back in my son Leo's life, packing his bags from the house he and I built together. Standing there, free of debt and back in control of my business, I realized the true value of my mother's secret. My mother, the quiet history teacher, had foreseen the toxicity of the Sinclair family. She didn't give me money. She gave me leverage. She knew that I would earn my way, but she also knew that sometimes you need a secret weapon to fight a corrupt power structure. She had protected me from beyond the grave. I used the $1 million to restart my business, rebuild my savings, and, most importantly, buy a new house near Leo's school. It wasn't the old house, but it was ours, built on honesty and integrity. The judge thought hard work was a liability. He was wrong. Hard work built the business, but my mother's silent legacy provided the ultimate justice. The man who tried to destroy me with a gavel was himself destroyed by a single, dusty ledger left by a retired schoolteacher. If you've ever been crushed by power only to rise again, share your story in the comments. And if you believe that integrity always wins over corruption, hit that like and subscribe button.